Erin and I have known each other for what, over 10 years now?
Longer than that.
Yeah.
Like 15.
Yeah, so
a long time. Yeah.
But, you know, it's always good to hear her speak because I always learn a handful of nuggets with her. So she's a wealth of information, and I'll let her kind of introduce herself and tell her story. But take it away, Erin.
I will. Did we want to give, there's one person online. Did they want to introduce themselves or do we not do that?
If you would like to, but
Who knows? Welcome to Pipe Up. Oh, we got 2 people online. Well, if they join. Whoever's online, feel free to introduce yourself. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, thanks so much. Oh yeah, does anybody need pens? Because this is a working meeting. I'm making you guys work today. Pen? All right. If you change your mind, you need a pen, let me know. I'm Erin Wikstrom. I appreciate what you said, Dr. Keith, about me having nuggets of information. I'm really just learning along with you. Today, I came up with this topic because I need it for myself. You know, sometimes we find ourselves getting out of balance or out of whack. And so I create content because the best way to learn is to have to teach it. I learned that a long time ago. So that's how I came up with this. And I decided to make it more of a workshop because we're all wrapping up our 2024 and we're heading into a 2025. And these last, couple weeks of the year become a blur. I mean, some of us get really busy, like I get really busy with work. This is like our Super Bowl with wealth management. I'm sure you can relate to this too. It's like required mandatory distributions, tax loss harvesting, final contributions before 12/31. This is busy for us. So it just flies by. So the whole idea of stopping to think and plan is kind of, a great idea in theory, but how do we do that? So today we're going to get some time to do it actively and then learn how to carry it with us ongoing. John, I love what you said about goal setting is a continuum. It's so true. Basically that's the end of the presentation. We can all go home now because John just summed it up. Because it's true, it is a goal, it's a continuum, it's constant, and that can feel exhausting, but we're gonna find a way to make it manageable. Now what I do during my day, I am a wealth manager. I work primarily in the high net worth space. So I have the privilege of working with people on setting their goals and using the resources to accomplish the things that they wanna do. I'm also a mom of 4 small children. So yeah, John, we were talking about this here. You got 4 as well? Okay. All right. What's your ages?
14, 11, 9, and 8.
Okay, we're right behind you. We're 8, 6, 4, 2.
Okay, there we go.
But I can tell you it gets better because I have 23, 21, 18, and 16.
Oh, so they're close like mine.
Yeah. So you'll get there.
Torture.
And I work the whole time too.
If we get back together, it's got to be with alcohol at this point. I'm a very, very busy person. I find myself sprinting a lot of times from one thing to the next, but I'm extremely passionate about this project. I think I'm the 2nd longest standing member on Speakers Bureau. I joined right before Dr. Keith, and then you joined, and that's how we became friends. And I did it I have some financial literacy workshops, like 4 myths that stop you from becoming a millionaire and things like that. But the ones that I spend the most time on and my passion project is goal setting workshops. The one that I started with that really propelled my speaking was my vision board workshop that I did a long, long time ago. It's the very first presentation I did at Women in Business a long time ago. And so this is just, I like helping people set their mile markers and hit the targets. I love that. I always joke when I sell my practice, I'm gonna go work as like a personal trainer or something like that, just because I love to see people get from one thing to the next. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm a very casual presenter, so feel free to get up, move around, grab more snacks. We need snacks to get through this if we're doing a workshop. So don't feel the need like it has to be too formal. And I do encourage interaction. So if you have questions or things to add, pipe up. We love to hear it. I fought on the title of this presentation so much. So if you read the program description, I talk a lot about the ripple effects that happen in our life that set a course, and then how to be more intentional with our habit building. So I think I spent the most time on this slide alone, is the title. And I'm still not sold on it. But for today, this is what we're sticking with. And I chose making progress a habit because I like the idea of progress over perfection. And it's a cliche, progress over perfection. I like that because nowadays it seems like we're so obsessed with the picture, the image, right? if you have any presence on social media whatsoever, you know that there's a billion filters and everyone's posting their most elaborate and beautiful lifestyle, but that's not authentic. That's not real. What's real is we're all kind of fumbling through, trying to head towards a certain direction, trying to set intentions. Hi, welcome. Trying to set good intentions and trying to stay on course. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. So that's why I settled on this. And progress, much like John said before, yeah, of course, is part of a continuum. It's a constant. It's a striving for. It's setting one foot in front of the other. So we're going to go through 4 different subtopics, which is out of my normal routine. Usually I do 3 subtopics, but I found that it couldn't just be the first 3. It had to be all 4. Now, the 4th bullet point will be your takeaways, but this is a working meeting. So I made the worksheet for us to walk alongside each other so that we can actually use this time, because we're all so busy, to do this for ourselves. And then you can take something with you to go. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk about the first step, which is pause. Does anyone do this every day? Does anyone pause for a moment to think before they start? You do a little bit. I don't.
I try, but January 1st and by February, it's.
Right, exactly. That's all of us, right? We're like, oh, today is the day. January 2nd, I'm pausing. I did it today because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. But like I said, I created this content because I'm also a student. I want to do this too. So this is me speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to you all. Now, in conflict, let's use that as an example, because my last 2 presentations ago, I spoke with Letitia, and we talked about, I should call her Dr. Letitia. We spoke about conflict. How much better is a conflict when you pause before you speak? Has anybody just fired off and responded? How'd it go?
Goes well.
Yeah, it goes really well. It's like, spoke right from the gut. Yeah, that went over really well. We all could use some pausing. So I'm gonna have us all take maybe, let's say, 1 minute, and you have some space on your worksheet. I actually want you to do a brain dump. What that means is, in the back of your brain right now, I know I'm doing it, I'm thinking of all the things I need to do. The remaining stocking stuffers I have to buy, the first person I need to call when I get to my office, the paperwork that I need to submit in order to be on time for that deadline coming up. So take 1 minute starting now to do a brain dump. Brain dump. Write down everything that you have on your mental to-do list. Yep. Just 15 more seconds. And pencils down. It's like back when I was a teacher. You don't have to read it, but show your list real quick, just like to the whole group. I even got a late start, guys, and mine's pretty full already, which just kind of proves my point. And mine ranges from make December phone calls and prudent process review to puffy earrings. That's my range of things then on my very own to-do list. Puffy earrings, my daughter, my 8-year-old really wants these puffy earrings that she saw, and I cannot find them anywhere. So if you see puffy stud earrings, please send me an email because I need to find them. Anyways, so we had to do that brain dump because you have to get out of your brain the things that are taking space before you can truly have a meaningful pause. Now, for the sake of time and your attention, I'm not going to practice the meaningful pause right now, but you understand the exercise that before you get into that pause, you do need to get things out. So what I like to encourage people to do, have a journal nearby or have a scratch pad of paper, make your day's to-dos or schedule out your day so that it can get out. And then we jump into pause. So I put quotes throughout the presentation that spoke to me. And I thought this was cool. It's the mindful pause is a daily habit. Maria says, pausing allows you to take a beat, to take a breath in your life. As everybody else is rushing around like a lunatic out there, I dare you to do the opposite. Anyone experienced road rage within the last week? Whether it was you or somebody else, you don't have to confess. You're welcome to. Get it off your chest. No, you haven't had anybody cut you off in traffic?
My middle name is sarcasm, so.
I got it. It's a little slow in the uptake. I guess I need that more
You don't know
coffee. So we've all experienced some road rage, and I feel like it's gotten worse. I don't know what the deal is, but when you're driving in traffic, people are, right?
Yeah.
It's so much
I drive all
worse.
over the place and I'm always calling my husband, I'm like, what's wrong with people?
Where are you going?
I'm not the people.
Yeah.
The other people.
Yes. It's, where are you going that you have to be in that much of a hurry and drive like such a jerk? Not that it's ever me, ever. Sometimes it's me. But my point is, everyone's running around like a lunatic. We're all just going and not really pausing to think about things. That's just an example. I mean, you can use so many different places where we're all running ragged. So if you took time to pause, it gives you that moment to come into yourself. Now, we're not at reflect yet. This is just to come back to yourself and not get so caught in all the demands that are thrown at us as people. I mean, I shared my intro. We have a very large practice. I'm blessed to serve a lot of people. I have very small children, and I have a lot of navigating that I have to do. I'm constantly being pulled in a million different directions. If I were Gumby, I'd look like I was stretched out like this. So that pause allows me to come back into myself, right? Now, I'm a big believer in philanthropic efforts, so I'm not saying this is all about me, but we can't really give much if we don't pour into ourselves too. So like, I'll use an example again, because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. Last night, instead of folding laundry and worrying about kids' snacks, I took time. I have 3 different books I'm reading right now. I don't know why, but I do. I have 3. They're totally different subjects. I took time to read a chapter in each of them. That was my way to come back into myself. Now, that's not a true pause, but it was making myself a priority so that I don't feel like that Gumby. So let's talk about how. How do we do this? We're all thinking of those things we have to do all the time. So I put together some techniques that I'm personally going to be putting into practice, and I thought I'd share with you guys. So schedule time before the rush begins. That may mean waking up early. Who's a night owl in this room? Night owls. Night owls unite. It's us. It's just us. Everyone else is a morning lark.
I go to bed at 8 p.m. I'm done.
Hey, that's like when I'm just.
But I'll be up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I'm horrible because I'm kind of both. I'm like, I'll go to bed at 10 and wake up at 4. You're a little bit of both? A little bit of both? Well, that's great. If you're already a morning person, because this is a practice I have to actively think about. I do wake up early, but it's more out of necessity than desire. It's like, I have to, otherwise I'm going to hate myself around 6:45 when my kids are waking up doing the Gumby thing, right? Pulling me apart. So you have to schedule time either before the rush or right after. In best case scenario, you're doing both. In best case scenario, you're pausing at the very beginning of the day to come into yourself to say, okay, here I am. And then at the end of the day, it's the best way to do it. Anybody get caught doom scrolling late at night? Yeah. It's doom scrolling. You know, when you're like on social media, just scrolling. Oh, that's a funny reel. Oh my gosh, those are great tips. Oh, I need to send this to my BFF right now. Not me, no, never. It's a horrible practice. I'm guilty of it too. I'm actively trying to put my phone literally on another table. What the problem is, we've become so reliant on it. It's our camera, it's our email, it's our means of communication, it's our alarm clock. But I'm actively trying to put it in a different place so I can pause.
But what if you missed the 51 best memes last week?
That is a great question. What are you gonna do?
And you come
How will
across
you
it about an hour
survive?
in, right?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I don't know what you do. You just have to let it go.
We'll have to pause and come up with a solution.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, that's then we're getting to plan. Don't jump ahead of us here. We're still just pausing. We did the exercise of the write down the everything you must do that day. That's also an effective exercise at night. If you're somebody who maybe wakes up thinking about things, a really good exercise to do is to have my mother-in-law actually taught me this. I have a great relationship with her. I'm very fortunate on that because that's not always the case. She taught me that to put a notepad right by your bedside.
Do that every night.
I do.
Yes.
All the time.
I do too.
In the middle of the night, I'll wake up and I'll be almost screaming. I'll write it down and everything's fine.
And then it's gone, and then you can go back to sleep. Because
Yeah.
what I find is if you have your brain working so much at the end of the day, you won't sleep well, which then sets up a bad course for the next day. So have a place where you can do that and have like a rolling to-do list and just get it out of your brain. And then really work to remove distractions. Like I mentioned, my phone, that's a big problem for all of us. Of all ages, we're all addicted to our devices. Every single person in this room, I can assure you that we are.
Planets.
Yes, and the planet. Yes, I totally agree. So if you can remove those distractions, so be in a place where you can truly just come to yourself. And then meditate or pray in a singular phrase. You've heard probably the term mantra, like people repeat a mantra that has some spiritual connotations. Whatever works for you, okay? So if it's like, just be, just be, just be. Or if you're a spiritual person and you're praying, be still, be still. Just say something to get your brain to focus on something singular. Actually, Dr. Keith, do you practice any, because I know you're into yoga and things like that. How long does it take, do you think, for a brain to truly slow down?
Well, you gotta look at it this way. Your brain is kind of like a muscle. And if you don't have control over your thoughts have control over you. So just like you're exercising the physical body, you have to exercise the mind too and being able to control those thoughts. And that's where meditation, and there's so many different types of meditations that you can do that's out there. It's not like sitting there in a quiet thing. Like you can do like a walking meditation, like going out for a walk and be 100% present. Feel the ground beneath your feet with every step that you take. What do you see? What do you smell? Invite all of your senses into that. Or you can simply sit there and stare at a flame on a candle and just try to empty your mind. So I know females have much more of a harder time meditating than males do because your brains are literally hardwired differently. But you know, it's just like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it will become. And you have to gain control over your mind and your thoughts.
I'm so glad you're here. You reminded me of something with the male-female part. My uncle once told me that men are waffles and women are pancakes. Okay, just go with it for a second. Go with it for a second. So you pour syrup on a waffle, where does it go?
Little square.
In the little squares. You pour syrup on a pancake, where does it go? That's why we're better at multitasking. I can have all 4 of my children asking for all 4 different things, be thinking of what I'm gonna make for dinner and change the laundry. Whereas a man's gonna be like, which one, you know what I mean? Like it is true, but then when it comes to pausing, we have a really hard time with that. So I love that, thank you so much. I knew you'd be better at explaining that than me. Yeah, the student. Reflect. So now that we've got the pause, the next step is to go into reflect mode. So it's so easy. We want to jump into reflect. Our society has done a great job through social media being one of them, of bringing self-awareness, You know, I think a lot of us are actively trying to become more self-aware. Self-awareness comes as a way of reflection. And so looking back on things and saying, what could have been done differently? So now once we're in that pause state, we've now reached into ourselves, and this should be a daily habit. We can go there. Oh, I missed a part of my worksheet, sorry. When can you schedule a meaningful pause? So this is for you. Pick a time of the day, write it on your worksheet, and stick to it. That's the first part, and then I'll go back to reflect. So for me, I'm gonna pick morning, personally. I'm gonna try morning and night, but morning for sure, to set my intentions for the day. So reflection, back to that, looking back within ourselves. So we've come to ourselves, now we can truly look into ourselves and reflect. This goes back to where I did my description, those pivotal moments. This seems like a weird segue, but just roll with me for a second. How many feel like they're stuck in a rut sometimes? Right? Stuck in a rut, doing the same things, kind of getting to the same places, not experiencing much different. That's all of us in one way or another. Maybe not in every category, but in a lot of ways. And have you ever thrown a rock into the water and seen the ripple go, right? It just goes and goes and goes. Something happened. Something happened in our rearview mirror. There was that one moment, and I put on the screen for better or for worse. And then this goes to your presentation next week, right? You're speaking the 17th at YPN about mindset. So I'm not going to steal his topic, but I'm doing a plug. You see that? Yeah, all right. Sign up. Yes, plug in. So abundance mindset, scarcity mindset. I think this is a Tony Robbins thing. This isn't an Erin thing. He talks about having that abundance versus scarcity mindset, okay? And I brought this up the last time I spoke, actually, because I think it's so cool if you think about the concept. I think we can have both, which sounds counterintuitive, but I think in one category of our life, we can be like, the options are limitless. I have no limit. And I think in some areas of life, we can feel like, well, there's only so much that I can do. I work with money, so I see this a ton with finance. So I'm going to use that as an example. It would be the mindset of, well, I'll never have enough money. I know multimillionaires. I have clients that are multimillionaires that still don't feel like they're wealthy. That's because of how they view money. And then I have clients who have not a penny saved and spend every dime they earn and they feel rich, right? Now, that's not, neither of those are good examples that you want to emulate. But my point is, something happened to set that course. So with the abundance mindset, you'll notice that the top two bullet points are exactly the same. Your relationship with family. Your childhood really, really matters on mindset. Would you agree with that, Mike? Childhood matters. Yeah, like what your parent or parents or whoever was your guardian, what they said is a huge trajectory setter for your life. It's not meant to be a millstone. It doesn't have to be something you wear. If you think of a millstone like a necklace with a big giant stone on it that drags you down, it doesn't have to be that. You do have the freedom to take that millstone off if you're on the for worse side. Okay, so use this today as a reason to take that off. If you're somebody who grew up like I grew up in a white picket fence world, I'll fully own that. I had two parents that loved each other. They raised me in a great home. I was supported and encouraged. I have that, but not everyone did. My husband didn't grow up with that. So it's understanding what you grew up with and how that can impact you. That's got to be part of your reflection. Now, segue, you don't have to reflect on that every day, especially if you're on the for worse side, because that wouldn't be a great way to start your day, right? Like, oh, I'm going to reflect all the way back to my traumas. Okay, I'm ready to go take over the world. No. You do this once, maybe a few times. If you've got deep traumas, you enlist support of professionals that can help you navigate it, but you got to at least own it. Maybe you were in the right place at the right time, and that set a great ripple into effect. And you're like, man, that set my momentum. Or maybe you missed something, and that set a bad ripple effect, and you didn't end up where you thought you should be. Maybe somebody came alongside you and elevated you up. That's my husband's story. He had somebody come alongside outside of his family unit that lifted him up, and it made all the difference in the world. Or maybe you just experienced some sort of devastating heartbreak. Maybe something happened that just tore you apart and you've never been the same since then. You've got to own those places. Okay, so for better or for worse, you have to make that part of your internal reflection. And why do we have to do that? Because we have to be authentic and honest with who we are and where we come from. So much of that sets the course for who we are right now. I'm going to bring math into it. It's like, oh, it's 9:15, we're doing math. Woohoo, compounding interest. Albert Einstein famously quoted, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Okay, so you either get it or you don't. And then I just did a chart of like, okay, if we did, this actually computes to $450 a month for 12 months, so every month, for 20 years. And so the total contribution would have been just shy of 100 grand, but you would have more than doubled your money at an 8%. So you can see just the mathematic effect of a ripple. Now, putting it psychologically, so this is my world. This is what I show people so that they can be accountable, save, build towards a goal. Of course, there's different vehicles to make that interest rate happen, but that's not the point. The point is, look at that delta, right? Look at the change. A former chamber member, do you remember Diane? Oh shoot, her last name's gonna escape me. She was a Speakers Bureau member, but she was part of 45 Degrees Counseling. And or was it was 45 Degrees, yes. Because she said the 45 Degrees was the perfect angle to launch something from starting to accelerating. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I don't know, I'm doing a very poor job explaining her pitch. But you see the delta of how much things change. Same goes psychologically when we decide to make one pivot. So we have that pivotal moment that set a ripple, and then we're gonna say, enough. I'm not gonna ride the wave of whatever successes or failures that I had. I'm gonna stop and change course slightly. This doesn't have to be a big move. This can be something small that you do continuously, and it makes that delta over time. Okay, that's the math equation for my nerds in the room. Nerds? Anyone? Me? All right, just me. I had to pull up a quote from a therapist to really bring this point home. And it goes back to how you were talking about your brain. And your thoughts will control you if you don't control your thoughts. So she says, if we want to be in control, we need to see into the control room beyond the conscious mind and change some of the programming we no longer benefit from. One way to access the unconscious is through self-reflection. Analyze what we see or feel as objectively as possible so we can better understand how we think, feel, and behave. I like the idea of a control room. So the really goofy side of me literally thinks of somebody up there like pulling levers and pushing buttons, like a little mini Erin sitting up there. And that little mini Erin has been formed and streamlined through a series of events. And so we got to look in there so that it's not just our subconscious constantly acting. That's the rut. The rut is our subconscious. The rut is the thing that we've always done, will always do, right? You can interrupt that rut and get in there. So we're going to do an exercise. I'm actually going to back on that. Let's go back to this quote. You don't have to spend a ton of time here. I'm going to give you, just for the sake of time, let's do 2 minutes and reflect. What would I like to change? What would I like to keep the same? This is yours. You're all sitting far enough apart, no one's going to look at your paper. About 30 seconds. All right. Finishing my thought. I'm doing it with you. Anybody care to share on either side of the column? I'm happy to start. Yes.
I mean, what I would like to change, I used to go to bed really early because I wake up really early. So I think that I would like to change. I would just shift it a little bit.
That's great.
I know I'm trying to manage all work-life balance, but more late nights, I want to go out with my husband and just go out, have a meal, and just go for a walk and do something. What I would not want to change is I like to do meal preps, and I love it because that keeps me very organized.
Yes.
So every week, I do it twice a week, and it's ready to go. Like I'm here, and I'm going to have another meeting. I wouldn't be home until late, but things are ready.
Yes, that's great.
And managing my calendar with my volunteering and chamber. I know I'm really busy in my business. This is my busy time. But if I plan really good, I could be at my events, and the food pantry I go, and chamber, and everything else I do. So.
Yes. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share? One of mine that I put down that's not quantifiable yet, we're going to get there, but just one thing I want to change is just feeling so busy all the time. I was talking to some friends of mine that I was talking about, I feel like I have to have every moment be something meaningful, like I'm doing something all the time. And I'd like to schedule more time where it's just being and not doing things. Anybody else want to share? Yes.
I put down that I want to read more. So sometimes I just do more reading and stuff for work and things rather than for like pleasure. So I've got like a stack of books at home that I just look at them. Hey, how you doing? I see you.
Great paperweight.
Yeah, you know. So, but actually like making an effort to kind of sit and just read more.
Excellent. These are awesome. Now this would be an exercise I would encourage you to really dive deep on. And reflection, while I do want it to be a daily exercise, we're not reflecting over our full life. Now going into a new year, this is a great time to reflect on the last 1, 2, 5, 10 years. If you've never done reflection, really dig deep into this reflection mode because it will help you find what's my subconscious ripple that's going on and how do I disrupt it, right? What's happening? I was talking to Dr. Keith before anyone arrived, and I was saying that I was doing this exercise as I was preparing my notes, and I found myself doing actions and habits that aren't aligned with where I want to end up. How does that happen? I got on that wrong compound. I delineated away from what I ultimately want to have and see. So it comes back down to, what are you doing right now that you don't like? What could you do differently? What are the things you do well? Like I love the meal planning thing. I was on that game for a long time and then it just got busy and I fell off of it. So that's something that I would want to change and bring back. Those, it's just as simple as that. But we don't take the time to actually go into ourselves and find those places because we're so busy. So something, again, tips of how to do this. How do we implement continual reflection that's quick? It is like your brain being that muscle. It is like an exercise. The more you do it, the better at it you get. And the more you do it, the more self-aware you are. But I did put as the final bullet point, have grace with yourself, which we'll come to that in just a second. Consider journaling. If you're not somebody who journals, it's a really good exercise. For whatever reason, when I was 13 years old, probably because I was really dramatic, I was like, I'm gonna journal, you know? So I did, I have journals all the way back, you know, from when I was 13 years old. And I'm hit or miss with it. Sometimes I'm really on this and I do it every day. Sometimes it's once a week, and that's okay too. Like sometimes there's seasons of your life where you're really in a pickle and you're like, I need to do some work here. And sometimes you're on a good trajectory. The point is to constantly be in that continuum of progress, to constantly make it that habit. Ask yourself, what would I like to change? What would I like to keep the same? We just did that exercise. And that could be very simple too, even from yesterday's events. Like, oh, I had a weird conversation. What's something I could have done differently? And sometimes it's, no, I kind of would have done that. I can't control the reaction that somebody else had. That's okay too. So then it becomes that letting go. Now, my parents have said to me since I was a kid that I like to go around the lake. We had a walking path that we used to go around that went around Wabansie Lake, if you're familiar with the area. And we'd walk that, and they said that even when I was little, I would just go around, da-da-da-da-da, Susie did this, and I was really upset. And I would process with them the day's events, even from a child. And they call it, well, Erin's walking around the lake. I have to have somebody I walk around the lake with, metaphorically speaking. So I'll call my husband and talk to him, or if maybe that's not the best person, I'll go to a therapist or a friend. It does help to have somebody to talk to. It also gives you that check. There's sometimes where I'll talk to somebody and I'll be like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And they're like, you're giving yourself too much credit. Let it go, which is so freeing to have that person. Or they'll say, yeah, you probably should have done something differently. That's what real friendships, partners, therapists do. They hold your feet to the fire. And then the last point that I put here was to have grace with yourself. We are so mean to ourselves. We are so mean to ourselves. Yeah.
Just nailed it.
What'd you say?
Just nailed it.
We are. The catch-22 of reflection is that we can tend to get so caught up in what we could have done that we give ourselves too much ownership. Or will take ownership for things that were frankly out of our control, like somebody's reaction was poor to us. Maybe they're going through something and they are the ones that need to do the reflection, and you just have to process it and let it go. Don't get caught in that pit of, oh, I'm a worm, I'm not worthy, that's not it either. Reflection should be an objective place. That therapist that I quoted earlier, she said, when you read through the whole white paper, she talks about this should be a judgment-free zone when you're in your control room. Just really hard to do because we all have our preconceived notions and biases, but your control room, try to eliminate the judgment. That's a hard thing to do. So that's as much as I can summarize, because I beat myself up all the time, guys, and I'm sure I'm not alone on that. Now, yes, please.
Yeah, so I agree with sort of whatever you have it there. I think about it maybe a little differently so I don't feel as bad when I beat myself up. I think that's a quality of winners. I think winners are just very hard on themselves. That they expect a lot from themselves, typically more than other people might expect from them. But it's important to recognize that instead of just keep beating yourself up, just say, okay, I'm doing this because it's part of being the winner's mindset or whatever. Don't keep doing it though. Recognize why you're doing it. You're doing it it's not necessarily a bad thing that you're doing, but you can't keep doing it, nonstop.
The crazy cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can get caught in that, which can cause you to actually freeze. One thing when Dr. Tish and I spoke, we talked about would you talk to your friend or even a stranger the way you talk to yourself? So if you're sitting there saying, oh, I should have done that. How dare I? I'm so stupid. I didn't do, if you're going down that, would you talk to a stranger that way? So this reflection thing is very, very vitally important, but it goes back to that one bullet point where it says it depends how your relationship with family and how they talk to you. If you grew up in a place where maybe you didn't have the best role models for positive talk, something tells me your brain's probably going to talk similar to that because we're so malleable at those childhood ages. You can change that ripple. You're just going to have to work a little harder. That's a fact. Yes.
So to the point about beating oneself up or having been in a situation or said something where you would have wanted to do something different, I think some of the harshness can relate to how big the stakes are in the moment, right? Is it something that could cause you to lose a client or to maybe not lose a job, but be impacted? So at a minimum, you're embarrassed. I know someone, former coworker, who manages those points very, very well. He just changes his story. And it's almost like, he doesn't say, I never said that. He will say, well, what I meant was. He's very good at that. I'm trying to copy that. But there are other times, you know, if you're accidentally, I make a point of trying to be very nice to people who are in service areas like cashiers, waiters, waitresses, that kind of thing. And every now and then I forget. I don't mean to be rude, but I forget, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That's a lot different than when you're a little too harsh with someone within your company or a client.
Yeah.
So I think the stakes have a lot to do with it too.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. So she said it depends on the stakes of the situation, like what's at risk, to how much you beat yourself up. And really, we should reflect on all of it regardless of the stakes. But then again, that judgment-free zone, and it's that muscle. It's working that muscle and it's seeing it from all vantage points. Okay. Anyone like to play chess? I like to play chess. Nerd. My daughter, I was so excited. The 8-year-old, she just recently said, we were at my parents' house because I don't have a chessboard at home that just sits out because I have a 2-year-old too. She would eat the pieces, and I have a dog because we're crazy. My parents have this beautiful chessboard just sitting out and in one of their rooms. And she went over to it and she's like, Mom, I want to learn how to play. And I'm like, yes, let's play chess. So we sat down and I went through piece by piece, like how this one moves, how this one moves, how you can take one out. This one can go two, like pawns can go two when you start. I started to explain to her all the intricacy. And then you think about, wow, this is complicated, right? Like this is a lot of moving parts. And then you have to constantly be thinking about where the other parts are moving, right? And that's so how planning is. Now backwards, the pause and reflect can be a daily exercise. Planning to a small degree can be a daily exercise, but really you should plan once, maybe once a month, maybe once a year. Depends on your personality and what you have laid out before you. Because planning's different than tasks, okay? Which we're gonna go into that. The plan is ultimately, what do you want out of life? And each move you make is part of that chessboard. And sometimes you get one piece knocked out because you get off course or you lose sight of the prize, which is winning, right? Now winning, I'm using that term loosely, it's whatever you define success as. You got to define that. That's for you. So on your worksheet, I'm going to leave it on this one for now. I put, what is your ideal picture? And I put 6 boxes here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Oh, this is good. I do want that. You have to create a picture of what is ideal. And I can tell you, because I talk to people about this every day as part of my practice, and it's going to vary dramatically from person to person. Dramatically. It's going to depend on where you live, if you have a partner, or if you're happily single, if you have children, if you don't want to have children, if you like to travel, if you're more of a home. It's so different from person to person. That's why social media is, I hate it. I'm a victim of it, but I hate it because it puts ideal as like ideologically, this is what you should want. Everybody should want this. But in reality, you could have those things and be miserable, including some of those influencers who are perpetrating it. So you need to take time to yourself and draw the picture of what is ideal. So things that can start it. Now, I don't know if we'll have time to dig into this today. Maybe we will. Let me think about that. What's your relationship with money? So I speak in actions, not like what would you like, not in passive. Also an English nerd. What would you like means that it's not attainable, like it's not there yet. I want you to pretend like you already have it. So you say, what's your relationship with money? I am financially successful. I can pay for the things that I want and need. I can provide private school tuition for my kids. I can fund my retirement plans. You know, that's what I mean by that. You want to live in that presence, even if you're not there. Okay, so that's point 1. That's intentional grammar. How do you engage in your relationships? I mean all relationships, whether that's a partner or a parent or a sibling or a child or a friendship. How do you engage in relationships? Where are you working or are you retired? So this could be a time thing too. So if you're looking at a plan, like when I talk with people, we're planning possibly 30 to 40 years out. And so I'll sit down with them and I say, okay, you're 85 years old, you're sitting on your front porch in a rocking chair, and you're looking backwards. What do you want to say you did? And they're always like, what? I don't know. And I'm like, that's the point. Everyone always sits down and they say, what's the number? How much do I have to retire? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Because if you want to sit at the TV and watch Murder, She Wrote versus take river cruises every other month, that's a different number. It's a way different number, and neither are wrong and neither are right. But I can't answer that question until I know what you want to do. Okay, so the are you working or are you retired could depend on how far out you're planning. What I can tell you guys, plan as far as possible and work backwards, and you'll probably end up pretty darn good. It's the people that don't plan that end up sort of in that lifetime rut of just like, wake up. My son said this, though he's 4. He said, Mommy, what are we doing tomorrow? I'm like, going to school. He's like, wake up, breakfast, school, snack, dinner, bed, wake up, breakfast, school, snack. He started doing this, and then it was so freaking funny. And Luke is just like, he's such a lover. He's so sweet. Like this boy sees his life. But even he feels the rut, guys. He's 4 years old. All right. So the sooner you can think ahead and plan, and that will dictate the steps that you take to get there. But you got to paint the picture. And if you don't paint the picture, it doesn't mean the picture doesn't exist. It's just being painted for you. So either you paint it or you just let it happen and it becomes what it is. Okay. What do you do with your days and weekends? Okay. And I again like to cast this out really far. I'll ask people, what's an ideal day in the life of being retired? Are you going to lunch with a friend? Are you living in a senior living community? Are you independent? Are you by family? What does it look like to you? What about those days where you aren't as agile and need support? What does that look like to you? Because we can quantify that too. How does your body feel? Dr. Keith, I'm like hitting this home for you. I like that the men cause stress. That was really funny. But then you said it was an acronym, and I was like, oh. So how does your body feel, right? So this goes along with how do you take care of your machine in order to feel good in your late years. And so if you're saying, well, I'm 85 years old and I want to feel as good as I could feel at 85 years old, there's going to be aches and pains. That's natural as part of aging. But how much so, right? And that will ultimately dictate what you eat, how often you work out, how much you sleep, right? Once you know your ideal, then you establish goals. So this is where people always mess it up. They start the new year with goals. Goals aren't motivators, guys. They're not. Goals are not motivators. Your picture's your motivator. And so I'm going to teach you actually how to properly set goals here in a moment. But your picture of what you want, that's what's going to get you out of bed. Quoting like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., when he stood up and said, I have a dream, that meant something. He didn't get up there and said, I have a goal. Everyone, let's talk about my goals that I have. He said, I have a dream. It was a vision. It was a picture that he painted in his head of what he thought that it would look like to have a desegregated world. What's your vision? What's your ideal picture? And actually, for the sake of time, I won't dig into this, but I would really encourage you today, because we'll forget, because it's just how it goes. Take time to write in each of these sections. Define your ideal. So an example for relational, I have a long-lasting marriage that has regular date nights and continual connection and authentic relationships. My kids live nearby and we have, like dig into what that looks like for relational. This can be, even if you're happily single, but you want that, put it on here. Put it on here. What does it look like? And spiritual, what does your spiritual life look like? So take time. I won't do it today because this is actually a really long exercise to do, but you have it with you. Now, goal setting. Now we're establishing goals. Goals should be stated in a positive sentence, not just one word. I'm going to break that up. A goal should not be, I'm going to stop beating myself up. I'm going to stop beating myself up. I'm going to stop beating myself up. That's not actually a goal. Okay, the goal would be, I have positive self-talk about myself. You can't state goals in a negative connotation because our brains don't work that way. It'll focus on the actual objective, which is beat myself up. That's the verb. The not, it doesn't work that way. So when you think of, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to stop doing this, all your brain hears is the doing this part. So you have to do it in a positive sentence, and it shouldn't just be one word, like fitness.
Lose weight.
Yeah, lose weight, exactly. Money. Passion. Like that's not a goal. Those are just things. Those are just words. It's powerful. Words, it's like back to that mantra exercise, but words are powerful, but it's got to be something that's stated. And then after that, we can talk about the mile markers to get to the various targets and the actions that you have to do to keep on track. So before I go on, everyone says, yes, I will do this exercise. Make the plan. Yes.
Do you talk with your clients about SMART goals?
I do not do that, but I'm a big believer in SMART goals. Specific, measurable, actionable, what's the R? Results and time-based. Yeah, this basically is the SMART goal presentation. But I know that's been done a lot, so but.
Yeah, no, I was wondering, because if that was maybe too complicated or too heavy to talk SMART goals. I'm a big believer in SMART goals.
Absolutely. I don't talk about it, but I make them do it in a like reverse psychology way. I'm very sneaky because to make it actionable, there's got to be little chunks that get them. So if I'm talking to a 30-something-year-old about retirement at 65, we're quantifying what it looks like as best we can right now because it'll evolve. The picture can evolve for the better, hopefully, but life happens too. But we're breaking it down to what do we have to do today to make that possible. So in a way, we're doing it. We're just not labeling it with them. So a quick goal workshop, because I find people, they fall apart here. And this goes to the New Year's resolution thing, because just a couple weeks, we're going to be ringing in 2025. And there's no shortage of concerns over what that's going to look like on either side. Like, oh, Decedent Solutions is calling, guys. So, yeah, that's right. So what's a better goal? And again, speaking in positive, present tense, I am fit, or I have an active and healthy diet that supports a long life so I can thrive as best as I can at every age and get to meet my great-grandchildren. Which is better? Right. The second one. I will be rich, or I am rich, or I will have enough resources to have a fulfilling retirement, support my children's college costs, and be able to take elaborate vacations every year. Rich is relative. I mean, I volunteer at a food pantry every month, and predominantly we support it. It's at my church. For whatever reason, we're a small church community. We get a lot of Haitian refugees, a lot. And I think as we're in this part of Aurora where they have housing over there. And I will have somebody that I speak with. They usually speak Haitian Creole and Spanish, so I help translate in Spanish, but it's really broken. It's Spanglish for, my Spanglish, and their second language is going to be Spanish too, so it's hilarious. We're like, comida, food, do you want this? But they're walking in flip-flops and a t-shirt, and it's like 25 degrees out. This is like their first winter ever in their lives. And they don't have the resources. So we do have actually as part of it a coat drive and all that. So I'm walking them back and talking about they need coats, they need boots, so we're getting them all this. They walk out with a huge smile on their face, feeling rich to be here, to be in this place where they got a free coat, free boots, they found housing, right? They have some food that they can take with them so they can provide for their family. But that might not be the definition of you're rich. Everyone walked in here with a coat. All right, so saying I am rich is not a goal. Quantify what you're doing with your money. My dad had me do this when I was really young. And he said, what do you want to do with money? And so I broke it down to how much I want to be able to charitably give in a percentage basis, how much I want to be able to provide for my children, what kind of legacy I want to leave behind, what sort of dollar amount would I like for a monthly lifestyle expense when I'm retired someday. And then while I'm in the accumulation years, what do I want to be able to do? What kind of vacations do I want to take? Dig into this, guys. It takes time, but if you take the time to do it, you have much more control over your thoughts and how that lifestyle turns out. So that's just my quick segue into a goal workshop. I love Zig Ziglar. I think I quote him in every single presentation that I do. If you're like, I don't know who that is, Google, use the Google machine. He's awesome. I don't care how much power, brilliance, or energy you have. If you don't harness it and focus it on a specific target and hold it there, you're never going to accomplish as much as your ability warrants. Ouch, Zig. He's right though. If you don't actually take all of that greatness that you're made of, and every single one in this room is awesome and different and bring something different and unique to the table. But if you don't take all of that, button it up in a nice package and point it in a direction, you're just gonna float on. Does anybody remember that old song, Float On? I love that song. That's what most people are doing. We're just all floating on. But you don't have to. You can set that course and chart your path. So you have to make decisive goals. Actually, it took me a long time to pick this word right here. Decisive. I don't know why, I just was stuck on that. I would kept right clicking and hitting synonyms. Anyone ever done that before? I'm just being honest. I was like, no, that's not it. That's not it. And then I settled on decisive because if you're not deciding it, it'll be decided for you. So be decisive on these goals and hold on to them with very strong convictions. It also helps in your reflection. So back to that beating yourself up. If you know where you're heading and you know what you're working towards, and part of your emotional self that you're working towards is somebody who feels confident, reassured, and good in their own skin, then it'll help control that reflection part as well. That decisive goal setting. Building the roadmap. So mile markers. So this is where people confuse this for goals. They're mile markers, okay? Mile markers are part of the roadmap that ultimately get us to the goal. So this is determining the actions that need to take place to get the goal in motion. So back to the worksheet real quick. In the quadrants, you're building your ideal picture. This is you building the ideal of what you want. Then you're writing a stated goal related to it using that little goal workshop that I did there. On the next page, you're going to say what actions need to take place to regularly accomplish the goal. So you can set it side by side. And if one of the goals in relational is have a meaningful relationship with my spouse, what are the regular actions that need to happen? It would be so easy, guys, for me to just float with my husband, like float on with my husband and stay focused on the kids and the to-dos and taking the garbage out and doing the dishes and doing the laundry and not pause and be like, hey, we married. We loved each other once. It happens so often in relationships. It's an intentional thing, right? On the financial side, it'd be so easy to be caught down in the budget and the day-to-day things. And I got to do utilities, grocery shopping, this, that, and the other, to not pause and think, how much do I need to save to be successful? And that should be part of it. So you got to determine the actions that need to take place, establish routine activities that facilitate the goal. Back to that accountability. So probably it's going to be the same person that's part of your reflection, that accountability partner, and it could be several. And then use the daily habits of pause and reflect to see if anything can change to reroute the course. In military, they'll use a terminology called course correction. Have you heard course correction? One of my really good friends, we're psychos who go to the gym at 5 a.m. together. We carpool together. It's great to have a buddy. And she and her husband met in the military when they were serving overseas. And they also have 4 kids, like us crazy people. And hers are a little bit older than mine. And so we'll chat a lot about life. And I grew up from a military background. I wasn't personally in the military, but my dad, my brothers, my grandpa, we have a long line of that. And she'll talk about her kids and use the term course correction. Like, oh, well, we had to have a course correction, which means discipline, something like that. I was like, whoa, that's harsh. I think I'm gonna use that. Like, we're course correcting now. Buckle up, buttercup. We're rerouting. But I actually really like that because part of what caused me to wake up and say, wow, some of the things that I do on a daily basis are tied to none of my goals or none of my ideal picture. It's because I got off course. So that's when we have to do a course correction. Today is your day. This is the day. You're here. You're listening to me. If you take 2 nuggets away from this, it's going to be course correction. Thank you, Nicole, right? That's what we have to do because we all have some sort of picture of what the ideal looks like and we're all starting from a different vantage point. But at any point, you can reroute. At any point, no matter what circumstances you have, you got this. Action. All right, we're doing great on time. I should be wrapped up soon if you're looking at the clock because you got somewhere to be. I get it. Taking action. So I put here due date. Okay, set a due date for building your plan. That's what that is. It's a due date for building the plan. Because today it might be asking a lot of you guys in like 3 minutes or less, write down your ideal. Like that's asking a lot. You might need some time where you sit down, glass of wine, really wonder, what do I want out of this life? You may have never asked yourself that. So set a due date for yourself. This is part of this actually SMART goal that Mike was talking about. You set a time for actually building the SMART goal. And then also part of the SMART goal is you set times to accomplish each goal here. I didn't go that deep today. I wanted to start with really building the ideal picture and let the rest fall where it's at. So you also talk about key support and visual reminders. Taking action. Okay, we're gonna do like a little exercise. I want you to repeat the phrase, or finish the phrase that I'm gonna say. If you fall off the horse, get back on, just do. Yeah. What's the other one that I thought of? Anyone else have those cliches? The knocked off the horse one is the one that I kept thinking about. But there's all these cliches that talk about just get going. If you get knocked down, keep going, get back up, right? Get on your feet. If you think about people who changed the course of history, you know, whoever is your like, oh my gosh, this person was amazing. Were they 100% successful all the time? No, in fact, most often they had tremendous failures. I always think of Colonel Sanders, the guy who founded KFC. He didn't even start KFC until he was in his 60s. He was like broke.
Little hope.
The next KFC. But you know, you think of people who recharted their lives at all various ages, and some of them were like tremendous financial stories. Some of them were tremendous movement stories of changing the course of history for people, groups, or individuals. The point is to do something. Otherwise, you can just go back to float on. Yes.
I always like the one, you don't lose if you get knocked down, you only lose if you stay down.
Yes.
Just another way of saying, get back up.
Absolutely. Yes.
If you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
There it is. I was looking for
I
these.
knew there was another one.
Yeah, there's more. I had a bunch written down, but I left that note on my desk. But you get the idea. And these phrases, these cliches exist for a reason. It's because people have done it. So my girls, they have books that they have to read and take home every night. And we have to sit and read them with them. And I recently learned, there's one that Rachel brought home called Adventures with Eric. And it's a true story about a man who's blind, who has climbed all 8 summits. It's remarkable. I'm sorry.
No, just good. I use that in my presentation.
Oh, you do?
Eric Wickemeyer.
Yes. Plug for Mike. 17. All right.
Great story.
It is. I won't go too far into it, but he was not born blind. He was actually born with sight and became blind from a degenerative disease. it did not stop him. In fact, I feel like he got more extreme. And this is from like an 8-year-old's tiny book. I'm like, wow, this is a great story. Rachel, read it again. It's this awesome story about somebody who overcame literally every obstacle that came their way and got back up and did it again. Okay, so do it. Just do it, right? I'm gonna end with why this horse picture's here because it seems really weird and off place. I did that on purpose, but it's there for a reason, I promise. Okay, so what you do daily, I said, really this is about habitual routine. There is an element of boringness when it comes to setting a new course, but it's really hard at first. There's this old phrase that it takes 21 days to build a habit. There's been more research on that it actually is totally different from person to person. It can be up to 60 days. It can be quicker. It could be 14 days. It could be 80 days. But build the routine that you want that's going to set that course, going back to that mathematical equation that showed that delta. If you stick to a habitual routine. So when I'm building I have my plan of what I want. Here's my ideal. And then I know what I need to do to get there. But then I have to schedule it. And before I can schedule it, I have to quantify it. Now, actually, this is where being really busy has helped me a lot because I don't have time to just putter. I don't have time to just, oh, okay, well, it'll happen through osmosis. No, I have to schedule it. Otherwise, it won't happen. So one of my things is I really do, that goal about the fitness is my goal. That is actually one of my goals about I want to have a healthy diet, live a long life, feel as best as I can as long as possible, and see my great-grandchildren. Those are my goals. So in order to do that, it changes the way I eat, it changes my frequency of workout, it changes how much I sleep, all those things, what medicines I put in my body and all of that. So one of the things I have to quantify on a weekly basis is my workout. I do a 60-minute workout 4 times a week. What days can I do that? All right, so it's this boring, guys. I mean, I can see everyone's glassing over because it's boring, right? None of this is interesting, but it's really important. And then it gives you measurable metrics to pace your scheduling. What happens a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this as a addictive achiever, I will put too many things on my plate and then feel like I missed out because I didn't get them all done. If I better quantify the activity, how long it's going to take, I'm going to have better success. So this is an important activity, as boring as it is. Put them on your calendar and then make a commitment to developing new habits and put a visual reminder where you'll see it every day. This is part of your action step. What is your visual reminder? If weight loss is a goal of yours, maybe it's a super hot person that you look at every day that you want to look like. I don't know. If it's financial, maybe it's a picture of a boat or a nice home or whatever, guys. Or if it's a great relationship, maybe it's a picture of 2 people who appear to be in love or a great connection with children. You get what I'm saying. Your brain thinks in images. We actually have to translate that this is a chair. But we see it and know what it is. But we have to think, chair, got it. We have to think of the word label. So the sooner you can get a visual reminder, the more successful you'll be at maintaining the habit. And stick with it. Horse. Let's talk about horses and then I'll be done. I put this on almost every presentation I do, so if you've been here, you've heard it before. What's the difference between $1 million horse and a $10,000 horse?
Who they surround themselves with.
Close. Sort of.
What did you say?
What's the difference between $1 million, who you surround yourselves with? That does make a difference. But in this analogy, it's the nose. Think of horse racing. How many horse races have been won by just a nose and a photo finish? Most of them. Most of them. And all that horse did, it actually probably wasn't running faster than the horse next to it, but it just stuck its neck out a little bit further to win the race. This is called the principle of just enough. I did not make it up. I heard it from somebody, I don't remember who, so you can quote me if you want to give me credit. No, I'm just joking, sort of. The principle of just enough. Doing just enough. First, understanding you are more than enough, just as you are. And you have just enough in you to get a little bit further today than you were yesterday. And if you do just enough change, you'll get there. So maybe one of your goals was, or your actions to build your business was, I need to call 10 prospects today, but life happened, I got busy. Well, maybe you have just enough time to call 5 prospects. I wanted to work out today, but I don't have 60 minutes to get there now. I woke up late. Well, maybe I had just enough time to get 20 minutes of a workout done just by running around my neighborhood. Just enough makes a big difference in forming new pathways into your brain. So I would encourage you to just embrace that and do your best. Do your best. Thank you so much for your time. I went 1 minute over, so I'm sorry, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.